Make sure your insurance doesn't come up short. Get gap cover with ALA. For more information, follow the links in the description.
Hello everybody. Volvo is one of those brands that's always prided itself on being the safe, sensible option. But over the years, every now and again, they've let their hair down. And when they do, the results are spectacular. And of course, for many, the most memorable, even 30 years later, is the mighty 850R. The family estate that decided it had had enough of picking up antiques and instead went racing. Then in the 2000s, we got the C30. Remembered today mostly as that car that was in Twilight, it is one of the coolest looking hatchbacks that ever was. Oh look, right on cue. But for us petrol heads, it's no vampire's runabout that has our heart. No, instead, it's the V60 Polestar. A legend created with that time-honoured recipe of taking a nice, sensible, somewhat unremarkable, but good-looking car and shoehorning into it the maddest, biggest engine you could find. In that case, a 3-litre, 6-cylinder turbo, which they stuck in transversely. That was, and is, a seriously cool car. And sadly, one that Volvo never really quite followed up. Yes, we got the V60 Polestar engineered, but it just didn't feel the same. However, there is a car in the mix that's often forgotten, for before it was retired, the original V60 Polestar got a bit of an update with this, for which they ditched the much-loved 3-litre 6-cylinder, replacing it with the complicated and rather cool twin-charged 2-litre 4-cylinder, combining both turbo and supercharging it, and replaced the aging 6-speed gearbox with a more modern 8-speed. Thing is though, it was only on sale for a year, and for most petrol heads, they'll never ever choose a 4-cylinder when a 6 is available. But does that make this a bad car? Well, today, I'm going to find out. Enjoy. At a first glance, this car might appear entirely unremarkable. After all, it's a silver Volvo estate. And that's the very reason why its owner, Matt, bought it. You see, he wanted something that he could leave in a London car park knowing nobody's going to pay it any attention. But he's also a petrol head. He's known about the Polestar for as long as it's existed. He's been a lifelong Volvo man, having owned a series of them. Before this, in fact, he had the V60 Cross Country. And he did tell me his other half was rather confused when he turned up with it, because as far as she could see, he'd just gone and bought the same car again. And that really is this car's appeal summed up. It is arguably the ultimate Q car. For UK customers too, were you to see one of these appear rather rapidly in your rearview mirror, the next thing you'd expect is to hear sirens and see blue lights. Although I'm not sure the police ever got themselves a Polestar. Anyway, what's this car all about? Well, on the one hand, it's simply a Volvo V60, the first generation car introduced back in 2013 and then replaced in 2018. It's got relatives in the Ford empire, but both to look at and sit in, doesn't feel very Ford at all. Everything in here is bespoke. In fact, the only bits I recognise, like the window switches over here, I know because other manufacturers pinched them. Doesn't it look good? There is something about the styling of these which is just perfect. This could sit in a showroom today and still look fresh. Even the silver paintwork, I think, complements it beautifully. This car presenting very well. And this particular one has an excellent history. It was supplied by Cleland Cars, the Scottish Borders Volvo dealership run by former touring car star John Cleland. More than that, this was actually his personal car for the first couple of years of its life. It then went to its second owner, who had it all the way up until this year when Matt purchased it. Sadly, being north of the border, where salt on the roads is a very frequent occurrence, and potentially even being close to the sea, underneath it does need a little bit of attention. The rear brake discs, for example, look like they've been taken from the Black Pearl. However, that's all stuff which can and will be fixed. In of itself, the V60 I think is a fairly decent car. It does feel a little tight in terms of interior space, but you will still get 2 adults in the back. The boot is a very good size, as you might expect of a Volvo, and this one's also got the integrated dog guard in it. Matt had originally thought about buying himself a dedicated sports car, but realised he wanted to take the pooch along for the ride, and the likes of, say, a 911 just wouldn't have fit the bill. This also is an excellent cruiser. Typical highlight of Volvo's, the seats, and these ones are superb. Very snug, they grip you actually quite nicely, but not too tightly, and they feel like they'd be fantastic over a long journey. They are standard with the Polestar, and in fact, when you bought one of those, there wasn't really anything you could choose from in the way of options. They were basically fully loaded from the factory. So you've got a beautiful digital dash, which still has physical elements separating parts of the screen, and looks really quite nice. Very clear, very easy to read, although I would prefer maybe a little bit more information here and there, particularly for the temperature gauge, which doesn't give me any numbers at all. There is satellite navigation and a full-colour LCD screen for all your infotainment, though even by 2013 standards, it was rather quaint in terms of its dimensions. Handily though, it's not a touchscreen, operated instead by one of the quartet of knobs down here. You've also got physical controls for your HVAC, your volume, even a proper number pad so you can dial a friend when you're on the move. There's a button to drop the rear headrests, Mercedes style. The seats are heated. The driver's side is electric with memory, the passenger side just electric. All of the windows too, naturally, are electric. You have steering wheel mounted controls, dual zone climate control, start stop, and a number of different safety features, which mercifully, this being an older car, if you turn off, they stay off. They include blind spot warning, collision detection. You also have adaptive bending headlights and all the good stuff like traction and stability control. There's even, in this beautiful frameless mirror, a little very clear indicator telling you which direction you're headed in. That's a nice touch, and it alone, I think, makes the car feel a lot newer than it actually is. But you're not interested in any of that stuff, are you? No, you want to know about the Polestar bit. So, what have they done? Well, it might not look like much, but it's fairly comprehensive. There are subtle tweaks to the body styling, though nothing to shout about what they've done. Instead, more to quietly announce the fact that this is a car that means business. Start it up, and the exhaust has a bit of presence to it. Pop it into sport, and it'll open a valve, giving it an even throatier idle. And on the move, it makes a much more interesting noise than I expected. The suspension in hot Swedish tradition is provided by Öhlins, and here it is 80% stiffer than that in the R design, the next sportiest model in the lineup. The car sits a little lower, it's got great big front brakes on it, and the engine makes here 367 horsepower. Torque is 347 pounds-feet. Curiously, it is up on power but down on torque compared with the older, larger but not supercharged 3-litre Turbo 6. Officially, the 0-62 time dropped by just 0.1 of a second. But what's it like when you want to have fun? Well, the old car was very competent, but still very much a Volvo. To throw it round a bend just wasn't really its thing. This, in theory, with a smaller engine up front, should be a bit better for that. The other big advancement here, the 8-speed gearbox, and in theory, that should really bring something to the party. But does it? Well, let's put it into sport and manual mode and find out. Now this is not the car I was expecting. For something which has not one but two methods of forced induction, you'd expect it to be all about that low and mid-range, particularly when you look at the rev counter and see the red line comes in at just 6,500 RPM. But that's not the case at all. Now it doesn't really seem to have turbo lag as such. That's the whole point of having a supercharger on there, but to get the best from this, you really do have to rev it. You also need to use the gearbox. Although sadly, it's that box which is one of my issues with the car. See, the shift itself appears to be quite a crisp one. If you were to look at this video and listen, you'd say, that's a great gear shift. Thing is though, there is a delay between me asking for it and the car actioning it. When you then, to make real progress, have to spend a lot of time close to that red line, does make things a little bit tricky. However, if you were to give the car a little bit of leeway for the fact it's a 13-year-old Volvo, I'd say it's certainly nowhere near bad enough to ruin your enjoyment of the thing. And I feel the same way about the engine. Is it a superstar? Well, not really. Is it anywhere near as memorable as the old six-cylinder? Certainly not. Nor does it make as good a sound. But it certainly has a decent pace about it. What I can't say for certain is how reliable the thing is. You see, Volvo persevered with this engine for quite a while, then eventually ditching it. And apparently they did it because, you'll be shocked to hear, I know, it was rather complicated and did go wrong. Now, something else not very good about this car, the turning circle. It's pretty crap, as is the visibility. Odd, you'd think, really, for a Volvo, a car so safety conscious, but this B pillar, quite far forward and quite chunky. The A pillars, well, they're not too bad, but they're still big. And for your passenger side lifesaver check, with the seat in a normal position, you've actually got a very big blind spot. That bliss system, I think, is a very worthy addition to this car. The ride too, it is adjustable, I should point out. See, when you're on it, it does work, flows with the road. It's really quite well damped. But as soon as you stop having fun, you realise it is quite firm. And for day-to-day ordinary family stuff, it might get a little bit tiring. It is likely not helped by the fact that this is sat on 20-inch rims. Now, they do look good, but I can't help but think a set of 19s on here might be the optimum configuration. The all-wheel drive system gives you a lot of confidence, and it can pull you out of a bend very happily. You can tell it's still a somewhat front-led car, but in all honesty, it drives like something that weighs about 200 or 300 kilos less than it does. This thing tips the scales at just over 1.8 tons. That's a lot, isn't it, for something that's not that big? And for these kind of roads, flowing but demanding sections of British tarmac, it feels very much at home. If today's video sends you on the hunt for your own slice of premium Swedish goodness, don't forget to use CarVertical, the super-powered super search that will cross-reference a number of databases from around the globe to give you all the information you want to know on any potential used car purchase, including mileage discrepancies, accident history, involvement in fire, theft, usage as a taxi, and all that good stuff. It takes just 60 seconds, requires either a registration number or a VIN, and if you buy multiple searches and use my discount code JayEmm, you'll get up to 50% off. Today too, this and its immediate predecessor are more appealing than ever before, and that's for a couple of reasons. First off, they have finally started to depreciate, though they are somewhat stubborn. It's only now, a decade after the things came out, you can buy one for about 20 grand. They're rare cars. Allegedly, there are only something like 200 of both combined on the roads of Britain. Today, on Auto Trader, there are just 4 V60 Polestars for sale, and not a single one of them is this later 2-litre. And just in case you're wondering if the fuel economy is a reason to buy it, probably not. On a run, you'll get about 35 to the gallon out of this. Around town, not even close. What has also changed in recent times is this infotainment can now be updated. There are myriad solutions out there, all in the aftermarket, for giving this the likes of Android Auto. See, back when I drove one first time round, it was a car that really appealed, but the simple fact was, it was too much money for an interior that I thought felt a bit too old, and that then you couldn't really do anything about. So it was an oddball weird car that you really, really had to love to buy one, because in terms of value, well, it didn't really make all that much sense. Today it feels like you could almost start making the argument for this as a soon-to-be modern classic. It's not quite there yet, it's still a bit too fresh in the memory, and truth be told, it looks too new. However, it is a prime example of the kind of car you can own, not attracting a bit of attention from anyone other than the odd petrolhead who's going to go, "Is that a Polestar?" And you can say, "Yes, it is." Now, if you want it more showy, of course, you can buy it in the signature Rebel Blue. That'd be the only colour I'd have. Left to its own devices, the gearbox is actually pretty decent. In regular mode, it shifts smoothly, comfortably and quietly. Put it in sport, and it'll then drop you very quickly into the best available gear. And in all honesty, I think that might actually make more sense than just shifting yourself. Yeah, it can go, this thing. Negative points? Well, the steering's okay. It's got a nice weighting to it, and the car responds beautifully. Very direct, but just doesn't have much in the way of feel or texture coming through. The brakes, though, are decent. Very nicely judged pedal travel, very effective, and give you massive confidence in terms of this car's stopping power. As you'd expect from a Volvo, the overall impression you get here with the chassis is of a car that's somewhat unflappable. You know, with this, you can carry some serious speed across fairly broken ground with confidence and composure. The car that came after this, the Polestar Engineered, was still a pretty decent thing. It introduced a large element of hybrid power, but to be honest, that just complicated an already over-engineered drivetrain even further. Worse though, it just doesn't bring anything new to the party. This, to me, is already all the car you'd ever need. And though I know the petrolheads would always want the 6-cylinder, if a 4's available, don't discount it. And did I mention how good these seats are? Oh yes. So then, the 2-litre twin-charged Volvo V60 Polestar, it's a good car. And with that being said, I want to say a big thank you to Matt for bringing his car out, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button down below, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.